So Rhulk from Destiny 2 is an absolute fucking giga chat. Background information for this in the Destiny universe. Basically, God exists and he's a ball, and Satan also exists and he's some weird dude with like smoke coming out of his head. Basically, the most recent Destiny expansion involves Sabathu, who has existed for like 7 years at this point. She has been in the background of a lot of things, and finally they've introduced her. We actually see her, we actually fight her, but we kill her at the end of the campaign. So everybody's like, "Oh, hang on, we're not fighting her for the raid. Then who are we fighting?" And then we meet him, the man, the Giga Chat himself, Rhulk, just fucking just random dude who shows up, and like normal Destiny raid bosses pretty much act as a very fancy wall. Like they might move around a bit, they might like taunt you a bit, but most of the time they're just like some big dude you shoot at. But no, not Rhulk, not this handsome motherfucker. When you fight him, he is in the arena staring down at you, and then you're like, oh, we're just gonna shoot him again, like fucking Vog. But then you get into his boss arena where you actually get to damage him, and then you see this man fucking walks up to you and fucking kicks you in the face, full roundhouse. He puts down his glaive, his big fucking rifle, and charges at you. Fucking full sprint. And that is amazing. And it is terrifying. It also does like some fucking fireball attacks. Anyway, where does this absolute sexy motherfucker's origins begin? Well, it all begins at the second oldest point in the universe. Second only to the literal beginning of time, where nothing existed. Basically, as I said, God exists and he's a big ball. Rhulk's planet was visited by God and basically created the 1%. But there was also people who were like, we don't want to be technologically advanced, we want to wander and be murdered. So they did. And as we all know, like the real life 1%, they like to hunt poor people for some reason.
You
For
just
so
imagine Jeff Bezos with like a bow and arrow
yeah.
at like a Walmart.
Yes, Jeff Bezos' secret police go out of the city, and they just murder homeless people for some reason. Basically, Rhulk exists on this planet, and he's like genuinely a psychopath. He's like skinning alien hamsters alive, wondering why people think he's weird. And he was it. He just goes like, "Fuck them, I guess. I'm based. They're cringe." And he admires his father, who is also unpsyching, but unlike Rhulk, his father realized maybe I shouldn't be a fucking psychopath, and he decided to not be a psychopath. Rhulk decided, nah, I'm going all in. Where's my hamsters? And event Rhulk basically ends up at some point murdering one of the 1%er hunter guard things. And he steals his rifle, and everybody's scared of him because, like, oh, you're not supposed to murder them. You're supposed to just, like, I guess, be murdered. I guess I'm not sure. It's also worth noting that it might be Rhulk editing this to his own favor. Like, he might not actually be entirely truthful, but how can you say no to this face? Rhulk basically, at some point, his father gets kidnapped, and he's like, you know what? In honor of my father, I'm naming my rifle after him. Basically, the Father Avenger, let's just call it. Rhulk gets exiled for being a psychopath, and he just goes around murdering the elite and being an absolute giga chad. Eventually, though, like, he is so, like, revered as this fucking urban legend. They send out, like, an entire army of people to, like, capture him, and he, like, if I'm not mistaken, I'm pretty sure he kills like a bunch of them, but he is eventually captured and brought into the Amazon warehouse. And there he finds out that his father has rejoined the city as one of the 1%ers. And basically like, please don't murder my son. I know he murdered a lot of people, but he was just being a little silly, goofy guy, you know? He's just a little trickster, a little goofy man. And he's like, wait a second, my father, 1%er? That's cringe. And then he decides to also become a 1%er, but only so that he can murder poor people. Anyway, as I said, Rhulk basically joins the 1%er, and he murders poor people. But at the same time, he also resents his father for basically being, my father, he might have saved me. And these people may murder poor people, but at least they're honest about murdering poor people, unlike my father. So he renamed his glade from the Father Avenger to the Father Killer, basically. He continues murdering poor people till eventually his father's like, "Hey, guess what? I'm actually only became a 1%er so that I could save our family." He's like, "That's cringe. I'm gonna kill you." And they're like, then his family starts being like, "Oh, please don't kill us, Rhulk. We're actually really, please don't kill us, Rhulk. We're really nice people." And he's like, like they're trying to appeal to his senses, like, "I'm your mother. These are your siblings." He's like, and Rhulk for like a brief moment is like, "Oh my god, am I a psychopath?" And then they push him off a fucking cliff into the literal abyss. That's actually what they call it in the lore. And now, another bit of context. On Rhulk's home planet, there's two suns. One of them vibrant blue, and the other one completely dark. When the blue sun is up, everything's cool, everything's fine and dandy. But when the dark sun comes up, then that's when the fucking monsters of the abyss come out and fucking murder you. And
Oh,
if you were cut out during this time, you were basically screwed. In the abyss, the light of the blue sun cannot reach it. So everything in the abyss is unrestricted in its time out. So they've obviously grown very big. And Rhulk was kicked directly into this hole, and everybody started cheering like, "Yay, we killed Rhulk. Goodbye, that son of a bitch." And, Rhulk is always like, "Alright, and this confirms it. I'm gonna be a full psychopath. Where's my Patrick Bateman outfit?" Rhulk is, anyway, now trapped in the abyss. And as I said, this is a good thing. Rhulk is like, "Alright then, I'm gonna die, but I'm not gonna die without a fight." He's about to be killed by a creature of the abyss until the witness, basically alien Satan, comes along. Or would it be alien Satan? Maybe not. Anyway, the witness comes along and like just deatomizes the creature of the abyss that we're going to kill him. It's like, "Hey, you want to pledge your allegiance to me?" And then explains her philosophy of the sword logic. And basically the sword logic is, if I kill you, then you deserve to die. Which is unknowingly what Rhulk has been following his whole life. So he's like, "Oh hell yeah, that's based." If sword logic, Rhulk is now back. He has his father killer upgraded. It's pack-a-punched now. He really murders his family, and everyone's like, "Oh my god, it's Patrick Bateman." Everybody's terrified of him because, he murdered everybody. And then he decides, "You know what? Fuck it, I'm gonna kill everybody now." So he kills pretty much everybody in the city, and he blows up the sun. He becomes the first disciple of the witness, and he basically, at this point, he is basically a godlike entity. Like, there's this character in Destiny as well. If you've even heard of Destiny, you've probably heard this name at some point, Oryx. Now, this is basically the original Space Satan before the Witness existed. But Oryx was like fucking like a space-conquering tyrant. He like killed countless civilizations, and for context, Rhulk is on level with Oryx. Oryx proclaimed himself a god, but Rhulk actively like despises the Hive for calling themselves gods because he's like, "They're not gods. I'm stronger than them." And the only real god here is the Witness, my beloved. I swear to God, I actually think the Witness was a woman, but it turns out he's actually a dude. So I was like, "Oh, so is Rhulk gay?" Anyway, Rhulk is given the task of recruiting the Almani, which basically, as far as we know, the theory goes that these guys were basically going to be the original Hive, which was Oryx's people. But, Rhulk was basically given the task of recruiting them. So he basically just starts, like, killing them off to, like, weed out the strongest of them. Only thing is, like, these were, like, a peaceful civilization, so that's why he was murdering them, to bring out, like, anger in them. Unfortunately, he's so good at murdering them that they resort to nuclear war. And this kills all of them, minus one. And this one survivor is like, "Why did you kill my people?" And Rhulk just goes like, "I am Rhulk," and leaves. The guy tries to kill him, but Rhulk is like, "Nah, fuck that shit." And he fucking murders him as well. So, showing this piece of civilization, start murdering them. They resort to nuclear war. See last survivor. "Why did you do it?" "I am Rhulk." leaves. Rhulk is like, hey, he's given a slap on the wrist by the witness, like, why did you kill them? I needed those people. So then anyway, he's given the task of recruiting the Hive. So he, so a bit more context here on the Hive. There's two types of Hive gods. There's the three siblings, Oryx, Savathun, and Xivu Arath. And there's the literal the Hive worm gods.
Zip.
Basically, big worm. And originally, there was the worm mother, who was the biggest worm. He basically was given a task of, like, finding the worm gods. So, he goes down into this, like, by the way, it, as far as we know, the depths of Fundament were, like, extremely dangerous. Like, they needed, like, an entire-ass spaceship to even try to go to the depths. But Rhulk, he just dives in casually. Without any protection, he just dives in, swims down. He comes across a Leviathan, who is described in the lore as being the size of a continent. And, like, we're talking space continents here, so that's probably pretty big. And the Leviathan starts warning him, like, go back. There is no life in the deep, but you will drown in it. And he's like, fuck you, and pulls out one of its ribs and says, I will rise from the deep. And he, like, keeps going further after casually pulling out the rib of a fucking continent-sized creature that he keeps as a trophy. Finds the worm gods and is like, hey, I'm gonna take your mother and you're gonna be loyal to the witness, okay? And there's like, okay. So he takes their mother, he takes the mother of worm gods. He turned the worm mother into a super weapon. As in, he basically, the worm mother is now dormant, laying eggs for Rhulk's army, and casually, like, spewing a laser into a super weapon called the Upended. We don't know what the Upended does, but whatever it is, it's very scary because Rhulk is very proud of it. Our only description of it from Rhulk is that it turns worlds inside out. Yeah, Rhulk ends up having to babysit Savathun because, you know, she's very cunning and she's probably scheming. Rhulk, as I said, gets into a bunch of arguments who's daddy's favorite child, and eventually Savathun, as of the most current expansion, steals the light, and she ends up, like, imprisoning Rhulk in his pyramid. But Rhulk is, like, so pissed off at this that he just casually rips a hole into her throne world so that alien zombies can invade it. As you know, we kill Rhulk in the raid after he fucks us up with Michael Jackson kicks and fireballs. And then that's where Rhulk's story ends. However, he may still be alive in some way, shape, or form, because at the end of the raid, when you kill him, he turns into a big tree person, and unlike the lore for one of the sparrows in the raid, some strange voice is talking to a guardian, which ends up like trying to take the guardian over, only for them to have to like nuke the person so that the like infection doesn't spread. And our current theory is that the voice talking to the guardian may have been Rhulk. This is like one of the most interesting things. So basically, as I said, alien god exists and he's a big ball. Now, as far as we know, nobody's ever like actually talked to the Traveler. We have like vague impression that there's like there's the fucking speakers from Destiny 1. Basically, for the most part, nobody speaks to the Traveler. But after the Hive got the light, there was a bunch of ghosts in the throne world. So Rhulk would just like casually like basically just capturing ghosts and going like, hey, give me the light. How light and dark works in Destiny is basically two fundamentals of the universe with opposing ideology. For the light is basically the giving force. You must, if you're worthy of it, you will be given the light, and you will gain like paracausal abilities. Whereas with the dark, aka the sword logic, aka the deep, aka everything else, how that works is only the strong can take it. So you must prove to the darkness that you are worthy of wielding it by like killing people, I guess. Basically, light, if you're worthy, will give it to you. Darkness, prove to us that you can take it. Now, Rhulk basically was being a bit of a trickster, a little goofy man, and was trying to see if he could take the light by basically going to ghosts and go like, hey, give me the light. No, give me the light. No, give me the light. Okay, I'll try. And then when he did this,
Then proceed
the
to force
Traveler
code.
itself fucking came through the ghost. It says, what was it? Disciple of the Witness. Fuck you. And then fucking explodes, trying to kill him. And he's just like, gosh darn it, I'm just gonna have to do it with another ghost. And then according to the lore, we find a pile of ghosts. Now he has done this multiple times. He's survived multiple paracosmic type bombs. Point is, Rhulk, absolute fucking Giga Chad. And I believe wholeheartedly he could solo the Warhammer 40k universe.